Hi, Dave.
Hello. Hey, Dan.
Hi, Dave.
Hello, hello.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I got 6:01, so we'll call the Tiverton Town Farm Renovation Committee committee to order. Hi, first of all. Hello, everybody. Good to see you guys. I don't really have any major sort of notes to kick off the evening with, but I will say right now from a roll call, we have Dave, Dan, Catherine, myself. Who am I missing here? And Pat. There we go. It's like sort of doing around the horn here as I'm going. It's been a long week and it's only Wednesday. And anybody else that chimes in, we'll add them in as we get going. We are going to table, there was a question about if the meeting minutes from October 26th actually were, I think, Catherine, I think you're accurate that it may actually have been a newer meeting. So we will table that and vote on them in our next meeting. I see Rick Rogers is here as well, which is good. And all I will say is I think from a scheduling standpoint, as I had mentioned in a prior meeting, we really need to start meeting more regularly. We took a little bit of I think there was a bit of a downtime there as we got through the playground because it was such a big undertaking, and we have a couple more pieces to the project. Will say I was at the Rhode Island Recreational Professional Associations meeting today. You get all the rec directors from across the state together, and they're pushing very hard on pickleball. And it was very interesting to talk to the folks from South Kingston about the state tournament they're working on and an interest in potentially coming to Tiverton in some capacity, even as one of the precursor events to the final tournament. So I think there's a buzz. Looking forward to seeing us keep moving forward. So with that said, Pat, would you mind giving sort of a quick treasurer's report?
Yeah. Give me one sec. I gotta open it. There actually hasn't been a whole lot of activity on the treasurer's report because things have naturally slowed down, but we do remain with a balance of about 44,000 in the account. All the bricks that have been ordered so far are safely tucked away at DPW. And I have enough to place another order. I'm hoping to place it Friday or Monday this week to get them in by the time we start putting in the first pieces of the walkway.
Perfect. So, and just so everybody can see that on the form right now, account balance is 44,074. When we had looked at approving the expenses for the outdoor fitness area, the cost on that was ballpark around, I think, 96,000, 94, 96. So there's some fundraising that needs to be done. Also, I did have conversations with Chris Cotta as we're going through the budgeting process right now, as well as maybe some other funds that we could potentially work with the town on. So that's not to say that there's any guarantee that has been given, just purely that we're going to have a discussion about it. But any questions for Pat regarding the treasurer's report? Okay. Hearing none, just kind of continuing to move forward. Pat, have you and Josh been able to connect at all about sort of completing the pavers part of the project? Getting them the completion on installation yet? Or
No, I haven't spoken with him. I haven't reached out to him, but we really haven't connected.
Gotcha.
I can definitely reach out to him.
Okay.
And see what try to get a plan moving forward with that.
Yeah. Rick Rogers, first of all, thank you for joining us tonight, but I also have a question for you. When the town does brick installation or installation in other areas, is there a master price agreement for the people that are eligible that you're aware of? Or do you have any documentation we could use to look at putting out the RFP for doing installation of the bricks?
Yes. Hi, Stu, and everybody. I don't recall DPW having done brickwork, at least in the last few years. There may be, I'm guessing maybe no, but there could be an MPA, somewhere in Rhode Island where it's listed, but it's not that common a work item. So if I had to guess, I would say there is not an MPA listing for brick installation, but there could be, and I can look into it.
Do you have a template for us putting out an RFP that we could use?
We've put out bids, but I don't recall putting out an RFP.
Okay, well, sorry, I think I'm using the wrong terminology. I guess where I'm trying to get to is rather than needing to write the request for bids from whole cloth, do you have a template that we should be following or a protocol that we should be following to put that out? Because if we don't have a master price agreement vendor, which I tend to think you're probably right, we're gonna have to follow the right protocols.
We do have a basically a spec sheet, a bid sheet that I did not create, but that I've been using while I'm here. I don't know who or when it was created, but I'm happy to forward that to you.
Yeah, could I ask you to forward that to me and also to Pat, just so she has a copy of it? And I think we want to get going on that in the next couple of days, like the next week or so, if we can, to get it out there. I think where Josh was coming in is he was going to wrap up what the final count was that we needed, what we were looking at on how many bricks we needed to buy separately from this, and then put the pieces together and put out a bid for it. All right. Any comments, questions? Words from somebody other than me? Okay. On the fundraising side of things, we obviously have a ways to go on where we're at. I do think there are a number of folks that have expressed interest in contributing to the project at various levels. What I'm wondering is if from the group that is here, if maybe we could get to sort of a subcommittee to meet outside of this sometime in the next 2 weeks, just to strategize. We did a while back put together that donor list, and I'd love to divide and conquer. I know we've talked about people taking certain elements, but like Chris Romlin, Dave, I know you guys had both offered to help previously. Would you mind if I reached out to you guys offline and maybe we set something up just to talk?
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now
Anybody
that,
else?
now that things are back open, we probably get a little bit of chance to get gatherings than the last 2 years, obviously, right?
Yeah, well, and one of the other things is I had talked to, and it may not end up being them, but I had talked to somebody from like Ragged Island about potentially doing a fundraiser there. And
Yep.
they're still building out, but at the time they had the tent. So I do think there's an opportunity for us to look at events that bring in revenue for this project, in addition to asking companies to support it.
I would agree. I know I talked to Aaron at the Red Dory, and that was again back in 21. And he said, when things break open, he'd be willing to do something over there too. So.
Okay. Do we want to take a look at just calendars real quick to see what might work?
In terms of a date to do fundraising?
No, just a date to get together and kind of have a bit of a subcommittee to review it. Like,
Yeah.
do you guys have any time next week?
I am traveling next week. The week after, I'm free though.
Okay. Dave, what does the week of the 7th to the 11th look like for you?
My calendar's out in the car, but I'm with Chris, at least for next week being out. The following week is fine.
All right, cool. I'll float some ideas for the 7th to the 11th, see what we can come up with. And I'll share it with the committee as long as we don't end up with a open meeting violation, but yeah. So just in terms of fundraising timelines, our next big task here is we need to make sure that we close that gap on the remaining roughly 50,000, 55, so that we can move on that outdoor fitness area. That's where the next piece to it is. And then after that, we'll really dive more into the larger element that we looked at and the adjustment of Town Farm in general. I think we can do the fitness area without having to dive into larger construction. I think it's when we start to really look at the tennis courts and the pickleball courts that things get bigger. So does that make sense? I don't know.
That makes sense for sure. Yeah, as long as we have the plan, and you can rope off where the fitness area is going to be, and the pickleball starts over, I think we're in good shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rick, just to kind of come back to you for a second, we had shared, and I don't think you can see it right now, so I don't think you have your screen open, but we had shared with the DEM where we were anticipating potentially trying to adjust things, and it involved looking at moving the dump road, the access road, to the south, right? Yeah. And then making that one sort of more cohesive parking area. And in our report, it did say very clearly that this was being discussed and proposed. It did not say that it was, had come to fruition, but obviously we would need to connect with you and determine that if that's something that the DPW could assist with and if it's viable. So have you seen, I think I sent it over to you. Have you had a chance to take a look at it?
When did you send that over?
I sent it over right around the time that we submitted it. So right around the end of December, I believe. It's been a while and it probably got lost right on the holidays. So don't sweat it. But if not, I can resend it.
Yes, if you don't mind resending that. But as far as moving the dump road, well, where would you be? Where was that imagined to be moved, to the south?
Yeah. So what we were anticipating was you've got that grassy area that runs all the way out to the road, and there's the dividing of the trees in between. So essentially level that whole area and then run the road from the access road from the road along the tree line, all the way. It sort of would dog ear by where the cemetery is, and then loop back in. And then so you create one large cohesive area that would be available for parking.
Yeah, that to me, that off the top of my head, that sounds like a good idea. We might have, we wouldn't be able to do it right now because let me back up. DPW would be happy to help. DPW is capable of helping, but we wouldn't want to do that until the capping is done, because unless it wasn't, fully done. In other words, with the big equipment that's going to be coming in, it's a nice straight shot for tractor trailers, etc. What I would envision is sort of a Z shape eventually, where you head east along the south property line and then take, a fairly small radius, turn to the north, and then again to the east. You would be able to do that, I think, in the future, as far as, pickup trucks, straight body trucks, etc. Depending on what's depending on what's anticipated long term for the landfill. But the trouble is, anything that comes into the tractor trailer, that's a tight squeeze for the width without a straight shot.
Yeah, so I think there's a middle ground in this, and I definitely appreciate the need to have easy access to that. I think what we can look at doing is how do we clear out that area without disturbing the existing road for now, and then as we move forward, when the time is appropriate, block it off. I think the bigger issue on our end is just ensuring that we're able to have that space available. It's really not functional parking right now, as much as we tried to make it functional on the grass. And then there's also really, like, even the part by the road, there's grass, but it's not really maintained. So if we can expand it and then figure out what the evolution of that looks like as it gets, the landfill gets capped. I don't know.
Yes, again, I think that's a good idea, Stu. Use the existing road for the time being, and yes, clear out the area to the south of the road, basically from Main Road up until a reasonable distance west of the existing historical cemetery. Clean up the area, put the book bins and the, big sisters, big brothers bins somewhere in that area, but not quite in the middle like that. Maybe be able to relocate David's, Connex storage box. I'm guessing David doesn't mind if that gets moved, but you could do a lot more parking in that area. The one thing that we would need is a fair amount of gravel. And right now our budget is negative. So we would have to get some kind of permission to purchase gravel.
Okay. Well, why don't we do this? I mean, if there's an opportunity, I will share with you what's been conceptualized, and I'll give Dave Paul credit, 'cause I think this concept was really his idea. So if we can put this together, have you give us a recommendation on how much gravel you might need and what sort of time frame. I think there are also volunteers that have heavy machinery that would love to rip out trees. So it's sort of cathartic, I'd assume. Chris, did you have a comment? No.
No.
All right. Sorry, you came off mic. So Rick, can I try to connect with you either later on this week or beginning of next week about it?
Yes, certainly. And do you remember, or anybody else remember, roughly where that cemetery is? Is that more or less across? My memory is it's more or less across from the LaPointe field. In other words, where the more of a gap stops on the east side of the tennis court. My memory is the cemetery is right across the street.
I think you're right, which would allow you to do that jog in the road you're talking about. So that jog in the road would avoid the cemetery.
Right.
It's kind of wet over there too.
So,
Rick, any other thoughts just that come to mind on stuff we should be aware of?
well, basically, no, but and I have to check my math, but it looks like it would be about 2,000, cubic feet. So, you might, I have to check the math, but you're looking at a little bit of gravel there. So let me try to figure that out. But it's not going to be a couple of bucks, is I guess what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, the other element that I would just suggest that we take a look at, and I could use your help, is on the playground itself, engineered wood fiber. So just over time, it gets moved. We're going to have to replenish what's there. I know as we built the playground, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm, and probably the maintenance of it could have been a little bit better refined, just the plan. And I'll give credit to the DPW because you guys have stepped up and helped a lot, but would love to develop a regular routine for how often we're putting in new engineered wood fiber to make sure we're compliant with specs. So when we connect next week, let's talk about that too. I just want to make sure we don't have any giant gaps underneath.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Happy to discuss various items over there when we meet, whenever you want, the signs, the mulch, where we would be able to get the mulch, et cetera. And just so people can be thinking about it, particularly used to, it looks to me like you'd be about 40,000 in gravel.
Yeah.
But that's just looking at the Google map.
A lot of rocks.
Yeah. We'll get kids to move them one by one. We'll do it as community service. Pick things up.
Fundraising for rocks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think in the long run, it makes a better venue. So
Yeah, it's much better. The parking will be much better and allow us to do the tennis courts into the side, which is really good.
Rick,
Rick,
are you in?
Yeah.
Is Rick in by phone or does he have visual of us?
No, I'm at the DPW garage and I'm on the computer.
So can you see us?
Oh yeah, I can see you.
Because I shared that picture a few minutes ago. The one
Which
that
one's
Stu was
that?
talking about. Can you see that, Rick?
Yes, I can.
Here we go.
Okay, that's the one that Stu
where
had
I
sent.
got it from.
Okay, yes, thank you, David. That drawing, except for what I would call the northwest corner, which we could adjust a little bit, of course. would be something that a tractor trailer would be able to do. Again, we had to adjust a little bit on the corner, and it looks to me like you've avoided the cemetery just as we've discussed, so thank you.
I'm sure the residents there appreciate it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and like, again, that's some like real like technical work done on Microsoft Paint. Like, there's a lot of flexibility with how that comes together. I think we just wanted more parking, and then also looking at making a better available spot for pickleball and tennis courts. So that really gets into the phase 2 timeline. So realistically, I don't think putting together the outdoor fitness space is going to take a heck of a lot of time, assuming they have the availability. So we're looking at, I'd like to say, in the next 30 to 60 days, we were really aiming for March, to have the remaining 50,000 or so raised to get that part of the project kicked off, and then shift gears to the second half of the last piece of the project. And then within that, we'll have to come back and make sure we have a plan for the parking lot area. Only other item in there that really needs to be nailed down between now and then, just because people are going to keep asking, is the pavers. So we'll get that piece done. And then fundraising. I think once we've got that last 50K for this part, we turn our attention to generating large amounts for pickleball. And I think that's going to go over fairly well. So that's what my kind of thinking on the timelines are for right now. Anybody have any other thoughts or feedback?
Sounds really good.
Nope, sounds like a plan.
All right. And Dave, you and Chris and I will meet in 2 weeks.
I have a question,
Yeah.
Stu. So it would be the next 30 to 60 days for fundraising. Then what would be the timeline for having the outdoor fitness area actually be installed? What would we be looking at for that?
Yeah, and again, I'll give a time frame in a vacuum, just because I don't know when it would fit in their schedule, but they pretty much could get that installed, I think, in about 2 weeks, because what they're doing, it all depends on with the excavation time just to carve out the spot. But the physical installation is they're going to do the whole thing in poured in place rubber. They do the equipment, and then they do the poured in place rubber around it. So I think the actual installation is not real hard, but I won't be able to give specific timelines until, we're ready to pull the trigger on it. And then also talking to Rick, because we will need a little bit of excavation work to prep it. So that also gets to the question of, when do we end up essentially closing the tennis courts, which I'd prefer not to do until we have to. And enough angry people out there, I'd rather not make more of them. I'll give him Dan's number.
So, no thanks.
Anything else just on general business that we haven't touched on, just as an update? Recruitment, Ryan Petrie is waiting on approval from the town council to join in. He's been waiting for like over a month, I think, at this point. So he sends his regrets that he couldn't make it tonight as an observer, but he was at one before and we had talked. So I anticipate him getting added at the next town council meeting. I hope that he does. And then I need to find one more person who has a focus in fundraising. So if anybody knows of somebody that could help in that particular area, please reach out to them, ask them to attend a meeting and to join. I'm just looking for somebody that's willing to help pay the pound of the pavement. That's a big thing for us right now. And then we'll be back at full committee strength. So. Cool. Trying to think if there's anything else that I'm not touching on right at the moment. Anybody think of anything?
Only thing I can think of, Stu, is more of a point of order. Going back to the treasurer's report, I don't believe we actually approved it, which I don't know if that matters or not.
So we talked about this at the last rec meetings. We had the same thing come up, and I asked the two town councilors that were there. They didn't seem to think we needed to. I think also, Chris, you brought it up that like in the past, rec hadn't voted on it, but I don't think we were real positive on that. So
No, it's fine. It's just something that popped into my head. I don't remember anybody making motions on anything tonight, so.
it's a good question. I should probably find that out.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like something that, you look at it, you're observing it. If there's an issue, I think that's something what you'd bring up and say, hey, we're going to be short, and it's a planning tool. But I don't know that it's something you vote on every time,
Mhm. Yeah.
I
will say-
I'll just note for the record that I approve of Pat's work on the treasurer's report without taking a vote on it.
There you go.
I like it. I will say, Pat, the format you put this in is super helpful. And I love the fact that you show when the dates of order and delivery, because it gives
Yes.
us a timeline for that. So that's super helpful.
Yeah, they're definitely running much slower than they initially promised, and that I think they're surprised at how slow it's going. But
Yeah, I wonder if it's a quantity related thing too. So if we had another, 500 bricks we ordered, if that would all of a sudden change the dynamic, but
maybe, maybe
we're not.
say.
All right. So action items coming out of this meeting. We've got one group that's going to get together and talk about fundraising. We have Pat, you and Josh are going to connect on the pavers, and then Rick, you're going to send us the spec sheet that you've used so we can take a look at and get the bid out, the request for bid out. And then again, from a timeline standpoint, we've got our next meeting, March 23rd. So it's exactly, it's 30 days from today, 1 month, and hoping that shortly thereafter, we've got really good news that we're getting ready to move forward with the outdoor fitness area. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Time to put the gas down. So,
Gas pedal, man.
Sounds good.
all
Full
right,
steam ahead.
absolutely.
And if I could just do nothing to do with this meeting, but because there's the head cheese on the rec, if you could give me a call at your convenience, because the budget hearing for the town council is this Saturday.
I am aware. Do you want me to give you a call after this?
Sure, that'd be great.
All right, I'll give you a call in a second, but I do need to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, can I get a second?
Also.
All right, all in favor? Bye.